to you like you want me to, and I'll hold you tight, baby. Oh. Hey y'all, welcome back to Bookish Realm. Listen, it's been a while since I sat down and done one of these because it's just been like chaos. And I have not done a weekly wrap up in a long time, and I promise y'all that after I did those June best and worst books of June, that finally I was gonna sit down and do a weekly wrap up again and get back into the swing of this. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a weekly wrap up so that we can finally get back into the swing of things. As you all know, I'm super inconsistent at these. It's fine. It depends on how my schedule goes. Depends on how I'm feeling, how life is treating me in the moment. And you know, I always start out strong and then it's like struggle bus throughout the rest of the year because I'm always so motivated at the beginning of the year, and then life is like, girl, that's cute. We love how motivated you feel in the beginning of the year, but we fuck that shit up. So yeah. that's exactly how life is for me. But I thought that now would be a good time, now that I'm feeling kind of more leveled out. Things are I wouldn't say that they're like less chaotic, but I don't know, like I feel okay in some instances, well enough to really sit down and actually do this video. So we are going to break this up into the categories like I always do. I don't have any picture books to share with you this week. I will share them next week because I actually have not gone through. Me and baby girl have been reading picture books for her summer reading, and I have not been doing a good job of documenting them. We've been reading more than what we typically read during the school year, and so it'll be nice for me to kind of go back and document those picture books. So I will end up sharing those at some point next week, but I do have quite a few things to share with you. Naturally, with it being whatever date it is in July, my reading has slowed down significantly, and that's really good because I think June was just a lot. And granted, I still am reading a lot for just in general. Like I'm still probably kicking out, you know, one book every couple of days, but it's not where I was finishing 3 or 4 books a day in June. And my brain kind of needed that slowdown, although I shouldn't really be slowing down because of something else that I have going on. But, you know, health and wellness first here, and that's what we're going to go with. So let's talk like about the graphic novels that I ended up finishing in the first part of July. I will be covering this stuff, of course, in my comic book manga graphic. I don't know why that wouldn't come out. I'll be covering all that stuff on that side of the channel, but I do want to mention the titles here just in case you do not watch that channel, which is perfectly fine. But I did end up finishing Jupiter Nettle and the 7 Schools of Magic, which is a middle grade graphic novel. Lost Time, which was supposed to be a like a Jurassic Park-esque middle grade graphic novel. I have thoughts about that one. Pizza Face, which is the sequel to Four Eyes by Rex Ogle, and I actually ended up liking that one better than Four Eyes. And then the last one that we have is Insomniac's After School Volume 6, because the girl has been pressed about that volume coming out. I started reading Insomniac's After School last month, quickly and totally and completely like fell in love with it, and I'm happy that I am all caught up. So now I have to wait till September until I'm able to get volume 7, or I could kind of read, I guess, you know, kind of chapter by chapter off of this if the chapters are available. But I did read that one from my library. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the books. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So not really a lot. And a great portion of these I actually have not, have not written reviews for them. I'm back behind on reviews again. I just had like a huge chunk of time off from work, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna catch up on my reviews. And then I said, oh, I'm gonna sit on my couch and watch trash reality TV because such is life. such is life. The first couple of ones that I read were middle grade books. The first one is Maid by Jamie Sumner. This one deals with a main character who is dealing with addiction via her mother. So they were able to just move. They moved to a apartment that is above a laundromat. And her mother is going through recovery and she's able to start a new school. So she's really, really looking forward to this new opportunity to get to know new students and take classes and stuff like that. But unfortunately, what ends up happening is that her mother gets into a car accident. The car accident wasn't her fault. She wasn't, you know, under the influence or anything. It just was one of those things where car accidents happen. And unfortunately, our main character really, really struggles with the idea that her mother is going to fall back into her addiction, especially because she began her addiction based off of prescription medication. So she's worried based off of the pain that she has via the accident that her mother, of course, is going to get prescribed medication and she's not going to be able to kind of manage working through appropriately taking that medication without going back into a full swing addiction. This is not for the faint of heart in the sense that I was not expecting it to be as tough as it was. I think the cover of this one is in a lot of ways misleading, and I always find that very impactful books, books that have a lot of strong topics in middle grade and young adult, often have covers that will make you feel as though they're bright and cheery, but the summaries, of course, will tell you otherwise. But the covers are always like, oh, this looks like a really cute book. And then you read the summary and you're like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a hard one. So I do want to point out that some of the content warnings associated with this one are PTSD, descriptions of overdose, and descriptions of drug use. Our main character, which I should have said her name is Franny. She ends up, because her mother, when her mother does get into the car accident and she gets injured, she ends up taking over her mother's cleaning jobs because she's worried that they're not going to have enough money to sustain themselves because her mother is unable to work at the moment. And it's a lot of trust that has been broken in the past, which leads to Franny not being able to trust her mother in this situation. Because I think in a healthy situation between a parent and a child, one, this would not be something that a child necessarily would worry about because they wouldn't really have a good grasp or knowledge of the fact that, hey, my mother has struggled badly with addiction, she's overdosed in front of me, and we may possibly see that addiction flare up again, and we are not going to be financially able to take care of the bills. So it is a very stressful situation for Franny, and we see that as you get to know her character, which is really, really tough. I think for me, it was tough for me as a parent, and this book is very, very raw. It's very, very real, but I thought it was so well done. Franny has a support system, and there are so many different pockets of people that are willing to support her, but I think Franny is very much so dealing with her trauma in a way that she feels like she must be isolated and nobody needs to know because she has to be able to take care of herself and her mother. She must protect their family, and all of that is very well addressed. I would have such a huge issue if we're introducing such tough, gritty topics and not having, one, a support system and it not being handled well. But I think Sumner did a great job in both, where Franny technically is never alone. And as much as she wants to make herself alone, she's not really ever alone. The woman who runs the laundromat underneath their apartment also runs the AA group, and she is so steadfast in making sure that Franny and her mother are okay. But Franny can't really see that, doesn't really understand that because of the things that she's experienced in the past. And I think Sumner does a great job in saying like, hey, this kid is dealing with a lot of trauma, and so the way that she processes her information and the ability to have a support system and the ability of her mother to be able to continue to support their family even in the fact that she's been into a car accident, that's not anything that Franny would be thinking of in that moment. She doesn't see that, which makes absolute sense. I also like that Summoner made sure that the mother held herself accountable for every single thing. There is no perfect happy ending to this, but it is a moment of reconciliation. I think where the mother is like, I don't expect you to trust me. I broke your trust and I did so many things wrong that if you look at me in my face right now and you say to me, I do not trust you, I do not believe anything coming out your mouth, that is fair. I think as a parent, it is hard sometimes to reckon with, and it is important that we do, but it can be difficult to say like, I made a mistake, because you want to have this perception like you know best and you know you do the right things, but in reality we as parents, we screw up every single day. I apologize to my kid all of the time, and I think in becoming a parent I had to learn that pride does not have any space in building a healthy relationship with your child. Whenever you mess up, you need to apologize. Like, I gave you a good example. It was one day we were having a conversation and I cut her off, and I saw her face kind of drop, and she's 4, and it was just kind of like, dang, like I couldn't even finish what I was saying. And I immediately was like, I apologize. I realized I literally just cut you off and I did not allow you to finish your thought, and that's not appropriate for me to do. Just because I'm older doesn't mean that you don't get the opportunity to express yourself and express your full thoughts. That takes a lot of like, my pride means nothing. You have to have that kind of conversation going in your head. Your pride means absolutely nothing in moments like that. And I love that her mother was not prideful. Her mother was able to sit there and say, I fucked up. You don't trust me and you have every right not to trust me. And it is my job as your parent to build that trust back. I understand why you did what you did, and like, granted, it's not something I wanted you to do, but I put you in this position where you're dealing with trauma because of decisions that I made. There was a lot of accountability in that, which I love, because it's easy to look at a kid like this and say like, well, why are you acting out? Why are you doing this in this kitchen? Because you know right from wrong. You know, you're not your mother. You know how to make correct decisions, but you have to think about the impact. And so the impact is going to dictate everything that Franny does in this book. But I really did end up enjoying this one, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. All right, so the next one that I have is another middle grade book. This one was a little bit shorter than Made For It. I don't even think that this one clocks in at 200 pages. So this is a good one for, I think, the younger end of the middle grade spectrum. If you didn't know, middle grade often hits ranges like in between 8 to 12 years old. And so it's, I mean, that's a pretty broad range when you think about like reading level and emotional intelligence, like the ability to handle certain topics in books. But this one I think would work well for a younger audience. And that's Haru, Zombie Dog Hero by Ellen O. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars, and it has content warnings for racism, ill treatment of animals, animal experimentation, and assault of a minor. This is not my favorite Ellen O book, and I just want to go ahead and put that out there. I think that Ellen O has done much better, but I appreciated some of the things that happen in this. So this follows 3 characters, is told in 3rd person, and it's Luke, Haru, and Penny. So Luke is the little boy, Haru's the dog, and Penny is the cat. And they, well, Haru and Luke do a lot with Luke's best friends, Max and Ben. And they have just, you know, regular old kid-like adventures, and things go wrong one day when Luke kind of gets into a verbal back and forth with their landlord, because the landlord engaged in explicit racism on page and basically did not care about raising the rent on Luke's family, and made some really, really egregious comments. And she goes and she physically assaults Luke, and Haru jumps in like, hold up, the dog, of course, to protect Luke. And she accuses Haru of attempting to like attack her, and of course that's when things kind of go left. And we learn a little bit about some mysterious experimentation that may be going on at a nearby kind of like plant. Now this plant is interesting because it's already had issues with pollution, and that pollution impacting the community due to accidents, and people have been up in arms about it, but they kind of are like, no, like it's not that big of a deal, everything is going to be fine, nobody's going to be harmed in it. So this one was a really interesting mix of a couple of different elements. I think there were some really interesting conversations about conservationism, about animal rights, about pollution. But the issue with this is I felt like the pacing was really, really off. So it was nice kind of seeing the fact that, one, this is a sci-fi book. We don't see a lot of sci-fi in middle grade, but it was interesting seeing how we got from that point of Luke and Haru and Penny and their relationships to Haru becoming supposedly this zombie dog. I thought that that was interesting. But the ending, because of the nature of how short this book is, the ending was so rushed and jumbled up. And it left me kind of feeling like, wait, what just happened? Like, how did we get from point A to point B? And then the ending kind of had a cliffhanger of sorts. You don't really figure out what is going to happen to this community post this specific event, which I don't want to delve into much because I feel like it is slightly a spoiler, but we don't really know much about what happened to the community post this event and Haru and Luke kind of being reunited with each other. So, and there's no indication that there will be a second book. This book came out in 2023. And I feel like middle grade usually does a good job of releasing sequels like once. Like if you have an initial year pub date, you're gonna get the sequel the following year. I know we don't see that very often in like adult and YA, but middle grade typically is okay with doing that. Sometimes they don't, sometimes it's every couple of years, but there's like no indication anywhere that there is gonna be a book 2. So I don't know. Like I said, I gave that one 3.5 stars. Was not my favorite. So the next one I have, I can't really tell you much about because it's so incredibly short. And it's a part of those Improbable Meet Cute books that are Amazon original stories. This one was only 61 pages. It was The Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez. And y'all know I have been slowly just making my way through as many Abby Jimenez books as I can this year, and I'm working on my 4th one right now, which I'll talk about at the end of this video. But this one literally is about 2 strangers who end up slowly falling in love because a Valentine's card was accidentally left on the heroine's windshield. Like, that's about as much as I want to give you. This is Abby Jimenez, so it's well written. It is super emotional, which I'm just so confused like how in such a short amount of time Abby can write such an emotional piece. It literally does not make any sense to me whatsoever, but I think that she did such a good job with this one. And like I said, I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and I would have loved to see this one as a full-length book, but I know that I have plenty of her backlist books to work through at the moment, so I'm not going to be too greedy at the moment, but I'm sure once I make it through a backlist, I will eventually start to get really, really greedy. The next one that I have is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose, and let me tell y'all, facts, straight up, me and Miss Geneva finna be done, okay? I have 2 more, like, popular books on here that I just have been like, these 2024 releases have been taking me through the fucking ringer, and I don't know how I really feel about it at this point because I'm getting some hits, but the predominant amount of these have been like fucking misses. Like misses, complete misses. So I have read Geneva Rose before. I read her book One of Us is Dead. Is that, let me look it up, because I probably am getting that wrong, but I read that in 2022. I read that, and my hugest issue with that one was that I love the like the messy kind of like wife vibes to it, and like really like just, it had a Real Housewives vibe to it, and it was super messy, but that ending was completely and utterly tragic, and I'm not sure what she was doing with that one. So I ended up giving that one 2 stars. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give her another chance because why not? I'm gonna stick it out. I'm gonna read Home is Where the Bodies Are. Because let's be honest, the marketing of this one is really good, especially when you look at the cover and it's a home videotape, and then you kind of read the story and figure out why the home videotape is so closely attached to this. But it follows on 3 siblings and is told from the perspective of 3 siblings whose mother has just passed away. Now, the 3 of them don't really get along that well. She's gotten divorced. She doesn't really have a strong relationship with her daughter, but she's the one that had been primarily responsible for taking care of the mother on her deathbed. She was there when the mother died. You have another, which she's suffering from addiction issues and had been for a very, very long time. And then you have the son who has gone to this tech company and has been like extremely wealthy and successful and really doesn't have much to do with his family. So the three of them basically meet back up because the mother has passed. You have the reading of the will. Each one of them gets these letters that they're not supposed to open until after the funeral. And while they're cleaning up the house, because I should go back and say, at the beginning of the novel, you find out that the father had gone missing, right? Just out of nowhere. And that the obsession for looking for the father is what drove one of the sisters' marriage. The one I was talking about that was married and has a daughter. It drove like her partner away from her, because she was just so obsessed with trying to figure out, like, this man did not move this way. He was very caring and loving for his family. He took care of us so well. Why did he just randomly pack up and leave? It just, to her, it just never made any sense. And when her mother was dying, her mother specifically says to her, like, your father didn't go missing, or your father didn't disappear. I can't remember the exact wording. Your father didn't go missing. He didn't disappear. Don't trust. And then she dies. Which I think is just so stereotypical that she cannot really like reveal the name before she takes her last breath. Like, she gets all the way up until the name and then she dies. I was like, okay, so I see where we're going with this. When they're cleaning out the house, they come across these old videotapes and they decide that they're going to watch them together as a family. So they start watching one, and it shows the mother and the father doing not anything, because y'all know me, I'll say that and people are like, oh, they were doing something sexual. No, they were engaging in a crime. That's what they were doing. They were engaging in a crime. And all three of the kids are blown away, supposedly, about why their parents were involved in this crime and how things happen. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think that Geneva Rose is particularly like a good writer. Her writing style doesn't necessarily work for me. It's very slow. And I don't know how to describe, I don't know if I'm describing that in a way that makes sense for anybody outside of me and my brain. But I feel like, or maybe I should put it this way. She writes in a way that makes the pacing feel incredibly slow. And once again, I keep going back that I'm the type of reader that loves thrillers that move like this. I mean, pow, 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 pow. Like, I need the pacing to be consistent. I prefer it to move faster. But for me, Geneva Rose writes in a way where, like, she moves at a snail's pace and it drives me up the wall. Another aspect of this that I think I didn't really care for when it's all said and done to it, once again, because I can't find a thriller that I have not been able to put two and two together, and it's literally driving me up the wall. It was so easy to figure out what happened. There was one character that was introduced that could have been a potential, but to be quite honest with you, there wasn't enough that would have even justified him being a part of whatever we saw on the tape. So that only left a certain amount of people, and it was so obvious. It was so incredibly obvious, like, who was responsible for everything and what legitimately had happened to the father. And then, like, I'm sorry, it was weird to me at the end, and this is what I'm saying, like, I can't really say what happened. Like, I can't say why I didn't care for the ending because it will spoil everything else. But I felt the ending was a cop-out. I really do. I may be wrong for saying that, but I feel like the ending was a cop-out. I feel like I don't think that it is logical to so easily get over something like that, what happened. And I think it's pretty, like, sick and twisted, and I just don't like the complicit feelings of everybody involved. It was just weird to me. It's just, she always writes situations, which I'm starting to notice is a pattern. She writes situations that just don't make any sense. And I don't know if it's supposed to have some type of messaging in it, but it just never lands well, and it always rubs me the wrong way. Like with the One of Us is Dead, she used a big kind of, she used trafficking as a way to kind of explain some things, and it was like, yeah, first of all, that came out of left field. Second of all, like, absolutely not. And in this one, it's this pacifying of things that have happened, and I'm all for, like, you know, forgiveness and stuff like that, but I just think the way that she wrote it, it was just weird to me, and I just didn't vibe with it. So I'm gonna go with another 2 stars. I actually haven't even written my physical review of that yet, but I'm telling you right now, I think I'm done with Geneva Rose, because if you've got 2 books back to back that I've given 2 stars, I think you and I are just not made for each other, and it's okay. That's perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Okay, so the next one that we're gonna go with here is Good Different, and this is a middle grade book with the most amazing disability representation. And this one also, I saw this one last year, but it wasn't highly like on my radar in terms of things that I was getting read last year. And I'm glad that I have had to go back and read it, and I really enjoyed it. It focuses on a main character that is on the spectrum, but she does not know that she's on the spectrum. In fact, her mother and her grandfather, who she has the closest relationship with, her dad is kind of out of the picture, they don't know that she's on the spectrum. And so we're in her head as she is attempting to process her interactions with people, and she faces a lot of heavy, like, discrimination is the best way to put it, while she's in school. Like things where she eventually is able to figure out, she hears like the terminology of being on the spectrum, and she's able to kind of figure out things to kind of assist her while she's in school. And she's ridiculed for it. She has teachers who are very cruel to her. So I think that part of reading the story was very difficult. But I do like that it was a learning opportunity for everyone, because you come full circle and you realize too that mom and grandpa are also on the spectrum, and they had no idea that there was a terminology for it. And her mother was very apprehensive about getting her tested to see if she was on the spectrum. And I think that a lot of that was fear. And I think that the author did a great job of showing that there was this kind of innate fear of like, oh goodness gracious, like what if my child is on the spectrum? Like what then? Like what do I do? How do we figure this out together as a family? And then realizing that it's a possibility that the whole family's on the spectrum. And so it was just really interesting. And she deals with a lot of like conflict with friends, which I thought was well done. And she learned how to process those friendships and communicate with those friendships. Like, you know, how you may perceive this one thing is not okay with me. Like, you are okay with someone touching you. I don't like to be touched. You like, don't touch me. I know you're only trying to be friendly and you don't mean anything bad by it, but touching me it's very uncomfortable for me. And because that actually ended up being a whole situation at one point between her and another student, and the student did not realize it, and she did not yet have the way to communicate that was something that she disliked. She knew it, but she, throughout the course of the novel, she learns how to be able to communicate like, hey, this is what works for me, this is what doesn't work for me. You know, loud noises, like somebody continuously laughing in my ear, it bothers me. It's too much. So learning how to effectively communicate those things is a huge thing for her. And then she's able to have that support system of friends who recognize that, okay, these are things that work for you, these are things that don't work for you, and we have to understand that in order to better manage this friendship between the two of us. But I've been trying to read more books, especially kind of like children's lit with disability representation. So if you're looking for some, I highly recommend this one. The next one that I read, I'm not going to talk a lot about because I'm going to have a video coming out this week about this book, and so I don't want to drag it too much here, but I'm gonna drag it for filth in this next video that I'm gonna do. And if this was a buddy read with Robin, we had been trying to come up with a buddy read for a minute, and Gothikana got thrown out early on because Gothikana came out a while ago, but it got republished this year. And Robin and I had talked about it before, and we were waiting because Robin had put it on hold with her library, and it was a long wait, and then all of a sudden it came in, and I already had an audiobook copy of it, and I was like, okay, well, let's just go ahead and read it. I legitimately do not understand how y'all are giving this book 5 stars. I genuinely don't. I feel like this was supposed to have like Beauty and the Beast retelling vibes to it, where we have a main character who has blue eyes, who gets whisked away to this secret boarding school college thing, kind of trying to give you this dark academia vibe. And it was horrible, because from one point of the beginning of the book to the ending of this book, I don't understand any of it. I literally do not. I don't understand how you start a plot point of kids disappearing during this annual event, and we never figure out why they go missing or who's doing it. We never figure that out. We never figure it out. We just, the whole plot was lost throughout the course of this book. The relationship between the main character, and I don't even want to call him a hero, because I don't know what the hell that was, but he was not anybody's hero. It was not attractive. It was not sexy. It was disgusting watching the two of them engage in sex. There was no chemistry. It felt just uncomfortable. And I, as someone who reads romance and does not mind sex scenes, whatever level, in their books, this was uncomfortable for me to read. It was just disgusting because of the nature of their relationship. And then on top of that, just how they would do it. It was like, I literally would be reading this book, y'all, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, that actually sounds extremely painful and uncomfortable. Like, why would I in a million years want someone to actually like do that to me physically? I would never want someone to touch me like that. It was just really, really weird, y'all. Like I said, this is one that I will talk about more deeply as I do this video that's going to come out this week, but I cannot recommend this book in good faith. 1 star. It is one of the worst books that I've read all year. I mean, I'm happy to say that I got it done and that we read it and I experienced it, but I don't understand it. Like, this whole, oh, it's so dark and mysterious. There's nothing figured out by the end of this book. None of it makes any sense. Doesn't make any sense, legitimately no sense whatsoever, because how does someone who lives in pure obscurity, like someone who does not exist on the grid, get found by this college? How? Whatever. Stupid book. 1 star. All right. The next one that I read was a young adult contemporary sapphic romance, and it's Wish You Weren't Here. This one was really, really cute. It's been a while since I've read a like romance, like young adult romance that takes place at a, if I don't stop dropping his damn pencil, I haven't read a romance that takes place at a summer camp in a while. So this was really, really interesting. And this was, it wasn't really, I don't want to go as far as say enemies to lovers, because they really weren't enemies. They were rivals in some ways, but they didn't really they didn't care for each other, but they dealt with each other and the way that they would work together at school, do whatever they had to do. But interactions outside of that was like a no-go. They were not interested in interacting with each other outside of that. So they figure out how to function together without having to cause any issues, because they both come from a relatively small town. And so to not cause issues for anybody else, they get along, but they don't really care for each other, but they don't hate each other. It's a very interesting dynamic. And so our main character, Juliet, she is very much so into this like sleepaway camp. It's been something that she does. It's her own thing. She comes from a fairly big family, so I feel like this is the one thing that she has where it centers her. It is about her, and it's something that she can look forward to. And Priya is kind of the opposite, social media kind of diva, really, really well put together like image. And so it's fine. Like, Juliet's like, okay, you know, you have whatever you have, and I know that I have this camp. Well, unfortunately, Priya shows up to the camp. So Priya shows up and Juliet's like, I know, like, why are you here? Like, you know, like, I don't hate you, but why are you here? Like, what purpose do you serve being here? I think that this was a great way for them to really slowly get to know each other. Because it's interesting, because I think like in certain points when they interact, you realize like they really don't know much about each other. And especially like Priya doesn't really know much about Juliet. There was one specific scene where I was like, okay, I like where this is going, where she did not even know how many siblings Juliet had. Like she thought like maybe like 1 or 2, and not realizing that there were 7 total of them. Like she comes from a very, very large family. And Juliet has to learn that Priya just does not like this perfect image that she's created, that her parents want her to uphold. Like it's frustrating for her. She doesn't enjoy it. She doesn't care for it. So I think them having to spend time getting to know each other led to this slow burn romance that reaches its kind of like peak at the end of the book. And I thought that the book was paced really, really well, along with the setting. The setting just was, I mean, chef's kiss. And it's good because the author in the author's note talks about how she ended up working at a summer camp. So she had a lot of points of reference for that, and you could tell that that building of this summer camp and the interactions that they had based off of these required activities, it worked very, very well. And I believe that this is the author's debut, Aaron Baldwin. I haven't seen anything else from them, and I'm pretty sure like this is like what this is their first book, but it was really, really well done for a debut. And if you're looking for a new sapphic books to check out, I would recommend that. The last one that I'm going to talk about very, very quickly is another buddy read that I did with Alana and Robin, and it is Spark of the Everflame. This is the first book in the Kindred's Curse series by Penn Cole. Everybody has been reading Spark of the Everflame. I have seen it recommended by a couple of people, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll try it. Like, you know, I'm not big on the whole romantasy thing, but this one has gotten a lot of good recommendations from a lot of different people. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to try it out. And Alana had asked if anyone wanted to do a buddy read, and I was like, I already have that on my Kindle, and so we read it, and it was good. It was 4 stars. Now I must say that our main character DM is probably just, she's like the most frustrating human's a stretch. She's the most frustrating being in the world, because she does not see what everyone else sees, and it's so aggravating because she's fighting it tooth and nail the entire, like literally. She's still fighting it by the time we get to the end of the book, and she just never gets over it. But this is a world where we have these groups that are separated into I don't want to say kingdoms, but that's the best way for me to kind of like describe it. Based off of their abilities, and the color of their eyes is what tells what ability they have. Now, the people that I'm talking about are the Descended. So the Descended are a mix of the gods and mortals, and so it had a very much so like demigod feel to it. And then you have mortals. So they live, not, I don't want to say in harmony, because that's kind of like the conflict of the book, is that the Descended have these special gifts and wealth that are not afforded to mortals. And so DM is a part of this mortal community where she works as a healer, and she has seen the Descendants, and they are not very kind to mortals, and that all plays a big role in another character by the name of Henry, and how they interact with each other, and how mortals feel about Descendants, and how Descendants feel about mortals. But the thing about DM is that she's very unusual for a mortal, where she has eyes that make it seem as though she's not Descended. But as you go through the course of the novel, you feel like maybe DM is not really aware of who she is, and that there's more to that whole situation than what people are willing to tell her. And some things happen, and she ends up interacting with the current prince. His name is Luther. It's, you know what? I don't want to give, because I literally could talk about this book, but I feel like there's so many things that I can't talk about because it would spoil it. But there is like a slow burn type of thing. A lot of characters that I don't like. I love me some Luther, but DM, you know, I like her, but it's like I want to give her a little 1-2 slap and be like, girl, wait the fuck up. I know you see, like, listen, stop being so damn delusional. I love her brother. I do not like Henry at all. Henry can suck my because I don't like him at all. I will say I think that this one was very interesting. The world building was done in a way that was slower. This is a great entry point for people who are not like super fantasy readers. I think that Pinnacle does a very good job slowly building this world as you go through the course of the novel, and you don't feel so overwhelmed or you don't feel confused as to what exactly is going on. Now, I think that as we go through future novels in this series, we probably will get to see more of the world outside of the community that DM is in, and that connection that she has with Luther. I think it will go past those borders, but for right now it feels very much so accessible. And as she expands, I think because we have such a solid foundation of the world and these great descriptions of what like the Descendant are like, then it won't feel as like overwhelming as it potentially could be. I think that she does a great job creating kind of like this morally gray plot. Not even just morally gray characters, but a plot in which everyone who is clashing heads feels like they are doing the right thing for their people. So the mortals and the descendant don't get along, and each one of them seems to have valid reasons for defending their group by using violence because they think it's the best thing for their people. And it does create, like I said, a very morally gray plot where it's kind of confusing to be like, I don't know who I would go with, because everyone, it makes sense that everyone feels the way that they feel. And so I'm very interested to see how she's going to work that out. But I'm gonna tell you, that ending had me shook. Not only did the end have me shook, it was one specific line, and I immediately texted Alana and Robin. I was like, what the fuck? And then the epilogue had me even more like, girl, because at one part her mama goes missing, right? Because that's a big plot point for this book. Her mother just disappears. Completely just, absolutely just disappears. And so she's trying to figure out what exactly happened to her mother. And let me tell y'all, yeah, that epilogue was something else. But I ended up giving that one 4 out of 5 stars, and we are going to continue on with the series and start the next one, which is like 600 something pages. But then I heard the third book is like over 1,000 pages, and I refuse to let that go. I know Alana is so tired of me saying this shit. All right, let's talk about what I'm currently reading. I am currently reading two things right now, because I'm not going to go into this whole laundry list of a whole bunch of things that I'm currently reading. I'm currently reading Hard by a Great Forest. This is a literary fiction book that follows a main character who has left Georgia the country, and has gone to London, and his brother has gone to London as well. His father was there. They left the mother in a war zone, and she kind of made it possible for them to leave. The mother ends up passing away. The father ends up going back to Georgia and disappears. And then the brother goes to look for the father, and he ends up disappearing. And so then our main character, he goes basically to find his family. And I am about 30% into this one, and it's really, really interesting because I did not know that this was like Hard by a Great Forest is the introduction for Hansel and Gretel. And that is super connected to this book, but it really is taking him down memory lane in the sense of like things that he has forgotten about, the state of the country and how it's been operated, its relationship with the Soviet Union. Like, there's just a little bit of historical context in there too that I'm really enjoying. I am also currently reading Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, because that is the third book in that trilogy, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm only about 30 pages in, and I love her writing so much. I know I'm gonna read that one quickly. It's already due back in the library, but I think I'm gonna power through that one this week because it is one that I'm excited to read. We had a traveling nurse as our heroine, and we have a guy who, I forget what his job is, but he has this supposed curse where whoever he dates, when they break up with him, they end up finding the person that they love. But so far so good. I'm enjoying it. But that's it, y'all. Let me know what you've read so far in July. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button for notifications, and I will be back with another video soon. Bye.
You're unaware, keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air like a blazing flare.